is Jacob, and I am a Norse Pagan, and today I want to talk about being a pagan within a big city. Now, the city I live in isn't massive. It's about 400,000 people, but I do still now live on a second floor apartment. Originally, when I first started this channel, I did have a first floor apartment with access to trees and nature right outside. But now that I'm on the second floor, this has changed a little bit. I can't just walk out my door and pour out offerings, because otherwise I'll be pouring it on my neighbor's head. And so now I feel like I can actually talk about being a pagan in a big city and having big city problems like not having access to, a tree right outside my house. And I've become more reliant on my altar space. I have about 5 tips in this video, and the first and most obvious is an altar space, which is why I'm starting it here in front of mine. I've become so much more reliant on this space. Before, I could almost argue it was a little bit more of a decoration at my previous place because I spent most of my time outside near a tree, near my outdoor altar space. But now, since I don't have that readily accessible at this new house, I'm using this so much more. I do have an entire video covering basically every object on this altar space, why it's there, going through the memory of it, and what I use it for. I also have several videos where I do give offerings here, including my most recent video honoring Thor. And so if you want to look at those, please check out those videos. But a quick recap for anyone who's new to the channel or just watching this video, an altar space indoors is very important, especially if you live in a big city. Something I really want to stress is the fact that this altar space is a mature altar space, you can almost call it. If you look back at my earlier videos, my altar was seriously super tiny. And I remember looking on Instagram and watching videos of people's altar spaces, and I'm like, man, I wish I had one that big, or I wish I had that many objects. But remember, this is after years of collecting objects for this, after years of having experiences that I want to remember and store here, and receiving gifts. I do find that building altar spaces outside, obviously having a fire, things like that are great, but you can do that in your home too. You don't want a bonfire in your home, but you can have candles. I mean, I have easily 7 or 8 candles on this altar space. Lighting them all up at night looks awesome. So not only does it look aesthetically pleasing, but also it's a very relaxing space. And that's something we're going to cover a little bit more towards the end of this video, is achieving relaxing atmospheres within your own house. But at least for the altar space standpoint, I think lighting the candles shows that the respect for the gods. I mean, in itself is a minor offering. And I think that's what you gotta look at altar spaces as. You're not gonna give these massive offerings here. You're not gonna give an entire bottle of mead at your offering space. I mean, I literally usually have a little shot glass that I pour offerings in, or I have this little tiny offering cup down here I use offerings for. Sometimes I'll bring a beer glass for Thor. And maintaining this altar space, cleaning it, and disposing of the offerings after a certain amount of time, after you feel like the offering has made an impact. Maintaining the space is a full-time thing. Just like watering houseplants, you do have to maintain an altar space throughout the weeks and months. So yeah, altar spaces I think is a must. Now, I get a lot of questions, usually from people that still live with their parents and are still in the proverbial pagan closet. And so I think that if you can't have something like this, start with something small. Again, don't picture a full table like this. I mean, my very Christian mother has come to my house and doesn't really even think about this. I think she thinks it is this cool, like, ooh, knick-knack table. But, start with something like this over here. Order one little tiny statue, or just, shoot, even I made this. This is a simple carving for an idol for Freya. It's simple, it looks bad, but I made this for her. So getting something, a little corner of a dresser, a little corner of your bookshelf, something. You can get some things that just look like knickknacks, and really it's your altar space. Get a tea candle, get something small, get a tiny little cup, and just keep it small, keep it hidden, and you shouldn't have really any problems. But yeah, it will grow, just like you will. So start small. It can just be one simple thing, one object, one idol, one rock to start your altar space. So yes, altar spaces are very important, no matter the size of them, to worshiping the old gods and honoring the old gods within your own home. But the second thing I want to talk about is nature and natural elements. So if you don't have access to nature like I do, I still have trees right outside my house. Let's say you live in a big city, or let's just say you live in a desert and you don't have greenery near you. You can still purchase greenery to put in your house and maintain and water, and that itself becomes a ritual. So I do keep this, I think it's a money tree, right next to my Vanir objects. And I use this, water and maintain it, which I need to water it. And then I have a couple other plants scattered throughout the house to give it a little bit more life, and it purifies the oxygen in the air, makes it all good to breathe. But I also have a patio space. Now everyone has this in a big city. So patio spaces are wonderful. You can get them. I mean, I have a second floor, so it's just, wooden blocked off. So I'm actually gonna head out today because I haven't done anything to my outdoor space here, which is a patio. Some people don't have them, but I find that a lot of apartments do have patios. If you don't live in an apartment with a patio, I highly recommend it, especially it's really gonna help you connect to the old gods to be able to have an open air place to sit and a place to put more, living things that you can escape to and really absorb yourself into nature to some way. The more space, the better. More space equals more plants. But yeah, I'm gonna head out right now and actually go purchase some plants and hang them up and show it to you and continue this video. Okay, you can't tell me that doesn't immediately look and feel better, because this is actually the first time I have ever gardened or done anything like this. So chances are everything here is probably going to die, but for right now I feel accomplished. And really this space was pretty barren and unused, and I really didn't use it much besides to drink my morning cup of coffee. But now it feels so much more vibrant and alive, and I want to spend time out here, even though I had to pull out the hat again because it's already getting quite warm here in Kentucky. But yeah, I got this little setup here in the corner for all the herbs and berries. I think I'm growing thyme, rosemary, strawberries, baby carrots, lavender, so I got a whole thing going on over there. And these hanging baskets, this one supposedly keeps mosquitoes away, which I like a lot, and then some flower baskets as well. I do intend on getting some more permanent pots, but for right now I think this will be fine, especially as my first foray. But I really do think that if you have any form of outdoor space, no matter how small, I mean, this isn't a huge space, but I really think taking the time to revamp it, to re-elevate it, and bring it to more of a pagan context and more of a natural context. That way, when you are feeling trapped inside your house, you can come out and really just escape into nature, even if it's something you maintain. But on the maintaining part, I really do think that taking care of plants, taking care of herbs and things like that, create a ritual, because you have to water plants to keep them alive and make sure they get the right amount of sun. And so, once or twice a week, you're out here maintaining the garden, which, to a group of people like us that form rituals, that form habits like this, I think that in a way, it forces you to come back out, get your hands in the soil a little bit, connect to nature. So it'll be a really good way to continuously build that connection. Well, the last point I was thinking of actually when I was buying all this is using these as offerings, because what a powerful offering, like grow your own strawberries and then leave those strawberries for Freya, because obviously you can't farm really to sustain yourself here. You might be able to get one or two meals, or one or two side items from a patio garden. But to think that I can take lavender or take rosemary or baby carrots, to pluck those and take those as an offering somewhere to a gathering or just in my own little ritual, I think that's a really powerful statement. And of course I added a few pagan elements. I took some of my bones, some of the wood I found, and created a more pagan space as well, because why not? But that brings us into our next tip, which is paganifying your space, or just bringing things into your space that make you feel more connected to the old ways that you follow. This tip might come as a surprise to some people that have been watching the channel for a while, because I'm usually really hard on Vikings and the Viking aesthetic, because I do believe that we need to distance ourselves from it as practitioners of this faith, because this faith isn't a religion of Vikings, it's a religion that is living today, that was honored before the Viking times and even slightly after the Viking times. But I do believe the Viking aesthetic has its place, and it's obviously quite popular among the Norse Pagan social media community. So I do believe it is important if you are living in a city or just have an apartment and you feel disconnected from the Norse gods and the Nordic vibes because it's hot outside. I think having some Viking aesthetic things in your house is really important. Obviously, I come from this more of a minimalist perspective. I like things nice and clean and crisp. So I do have, this big shield that was made by a member of our community, Keenan. I have my mead horn on display and of course a plant like I talked about earlier. But yeah, I love having, this bad boy here. Because, this is just so cool and so well made. I absolutely love it. But I think this is what it looked like before I had a shield here. And so just simply adding this, not only looks good as like an art piece, but it reminds me of the North, the Viking age, just a little bit more. So throughout my house, I just have these random moments of Viking, of Norse, that just make me feel more connected to the northern energies, the northern gods. As a Norse pagan, adding things like shields and axes and swords and maybe even like fake furs or even real furs laying around the house gives me that little bit of boost I need. And any kind of decoration or home, spirituality, livelihood thing, everything seems to be a minor change. I'm not saying this makes me feel so connected to the gods, but it helps, just a little bit. Imagine if this wasn't here. Let's take it down again. This is no longer in my house. I walk in every day, and there's this big white spot, or maybe some boring art up there. And I think that when you are living in a big city, or disconnected from nature, and you want to feel connected to the gods, all the little things you do in your own home is only going to make your connection even stronger. The next piece of advice I have for you is a little bit strange and probably more of my own thought. It's something that has really helped me, and that is being master of your own home, or really controlling the space that you live in and not letting it control you. For me, I have done this through minimalism. As some of you may know, I do proclaim myself a minimalist in the sense that I try not to own a lot of stuff. I try to keep things clean and organized, and this for me is a way for me to control my life and be the master of my own household. The reason I think this is important, in particular for pagans living in a big city, or at least pagans that spend a lot of time indoors in their apartments, is that our lives tend to control us if we're not careful. If we do not have some form of system in place in order to regain control of our own destinies, regain control of our own spirituality. Now, while I do say that I'm a minimalist, this does not mean that I'm perfect in any means, and I fail all the time. But at least I have that little chirp in the back of my mind that says, you're a minimalist. What can we get rid of? What can we declutter? Especially as a filmmaker, as someone that makes videos for YouTube, I have to maintain my house to a certain level of goodness for a video, making sure things look good in frame and things like that. But outside of that, if you look into my bedroom, for instance, you'll find that my bed is often not made, especially if I'm really busy. But when I really want to regain control of my life, I do that extra 5% to my day. 4%, whatever you would consider making your bed, and I actually make my bed. It might sound so simple, but just like I previously said, it's the little things that help us regain control of our lives and make us feel more at home within our own homes. And so sometimes that can be as simple as making your bed, or reorganizing your desk from a busy day of work, or just giving everything a good dusting down. Really finding what works best for you in order to maintain control of your own life and be the master of your household. The last piece of advice I have for pagans living in a big city, or for pagans that spend a lot of their practice within their own homes, is to do rituals outside of your altar space and make the mundane more ritualistic and more comfortable and more magical. What I mean by this can simply be lighting a candle when you normally wouldn't. For me, for instance, when I sit down to edit a video, which sometimes can take hours based on the size of the video, I light a candle. I make myself a cup of tea. I put on, a certain type of sweatpants, or, I make sure the AC is really cold and I wrap myself in a blanket, or just these little things that make me feel comfortable, that make me feel more in tune with reality, more in tune with myself. It's these small things that can really elevate the mundane parts of life. Or even when I sit down to pay bills, I'll light a candle, or perhaps pour myself out a glass of mead in order to celebrate, like, hey, you got done with the bills, hey, you've actually maintained your finances and things like that. It sounds so simple, and me saying, I'm like, these sound like such simple things, but think about all the things I've told you in this video. Create an outdoor space in your patio, or bring nature inside for you. Have plants all around the house. Have plants on your patio if you have one. Leave pagan things around the house, such as my drum or the shield I have, and it can be whatever applies to your personal practice. Leave little snippets of that around the house to make you feel more connected. Keep your house really well cleaned, maintained, be the master of your own home, and then make the mundane ritualistic. All of these things, really think about it. If you do all of those things, it might not be an aha moment. You might not have the gods descend upon your house and say, oh, you have such a well-maintained home. Oh my, we're gonna spend more time here. No, that's not going to happen. But all of those things put together will passively make you more at peace, give you more rest, give you a more loving and warm feeling in your own home. And those things will help you detox from your life, especially when so many of us are working from home now, that when we take those moments to cleanse ourselves of the stressful world we live in, even within our own home, and leave work at the door, or banish work outside the door if we have to work within our own house, and go to a place of rest. All these things will help you in your own personal ritual practice, help you with your connection to the gods, so the next time you do call out for them, you're not carrying all the weight of the world on your shoulders, and you can really connect to them. So I do hope this video has been helpful to you. I know it's been kind of a hodgepodge of ideas, some small, some big, but these are all things that have helped me along my journey. These are all things that I've been informed by watching other people live their lives, by talking to other pagans, talking to non-pagans, and seeing what helps us both in our spiritual paths, but also our personal paths in this modern and crazy world. But folk, thank you very much, and until the hall, skål.
Where